The Ottoman Empire Conquest and Consolidation. Fourth part. In 1498, therefore, Bayezid both increased the size of the fleet and engaged experienced corsairs as naval captains. Piracy was, in the succeeding centuries, to act as the most important school of seamanship and naval warfare for Ottoman mariners, and the corsairs were to provide the most successful Ottoman admirals. It was Bayezid who established the close link between piracy and the Imperial Ottoman fleet. Piracy on both sides was also one of the causes of friction which led to war with Venice. In 1499, the repatriation of Jem's body from Italy and its public burial removed a lingering fear that rumors of the prince's survival might still encourage dissent, and in this year, Bayezid declared war. The first Ottoman victory came at the end of August, with the fall of Navpactos on the Gulf of Corinth. At the same time, the Sultan sent raiders into Venetian territory in Dalmatia, and later into Friuli, convincing the Venetians that they should try to end the war by diplomacy. However, the embassy to Bayezid failed, and, in 1500, they suffered serious losses with the fall in August of the coastal fortresses of Methone, Koroni and Navarino in the Peloponnesos. The losses spurred Venice to further diplomatic action, this time successful. By the end of May, 1501, negotiators had constructed a triple alliance between the papacy, Venice and Hungary and, in addition, persuaded the kings of France and Spain to contribute to the war. With the help of these allies, Venice began to win victories. In December, 1500, with Spanish reinforcements, she occupied Cephalonia. In 1501, a joint Franco-Venetian attack on Mytilene, the main fortress on Lesbos, failed, but in 1502, with the armed assistance of the papacy, Venice took the island of Lefkada, establishing, temporarily at least, a dominance in the Ionian Islands, with control of Corfu, Lefkada, Cephalonia, and Zakynthos. Bayezid, however, offset this loss with the capture in the same year of the Venetian port of Durrës on the Adriatic. By 1502, the war had ruined Venice, and since Bayezid had achieved his goals, he was prepared to conclude a peace. By the Treaty of 1503, while retaining commercial privileges, Venice abandoned Methone, Koroni, Navpactos, and Durrës, and ceded Lefkada to Bayezid. In the same year, the Sultan concluded a 7-year truce with Hungary. The war had brought Bayezid important gains of territory in Greece. Their encounter with French gunners at the siege of Mytilene had taught Ottoman artillerymen the most up-to-date artillery techniques. Above all, it had established the Ottoman Empire for the first time as a naval power. The Treaty of 1503 marked the beginning of an Ottoman disengagement from Europe that was to last until 1521. In the first 2 decades of the 16th century, it was events in the east that were to preoccupy the sultans. The first sign of these troubles was a revolt in 1500 of the Turgut and Varsak Turkomans of the Taurus Mountains, around a Karamanid pretender. The Grand Vizier, Mizi Pasha, was able to suppress the uprising without, it seems, much trouble. This, however, had been a local incident, whereas future revolts in Anatolia were to acquire a far more dangerous, international aspect. The reason for this was the establishment of the Safavid dynasty in Iran. 32. The dynasty takes its name from its ancestor, Safi al-Din, the leader in the early 14th century of a religious order at Ardabil, on the Caspian Sea. During the course of the 15th century, the nature of the order changed, as the descendants of Safi al-Din began to claim divinity for themselves and, at the same time, adopted the tenets of Shia Islam. With a claim to divinity went a claim to political power and an active program of proselytization not only in Iran, but also in Syria and, above all, in Anatolia. The most active supporters of the Safavid order were the Turkoman tribesmen of Anatolia, many of whom migrated to Iran. It was the support of these men, known as Kizilbash, red head, from their distinctive red headgear, that brought Shah Ismail into power in Tabriz in 1501. It was they too who fought in the armies which defeated his enemies in Iran and Iraq. In 1501, Ismail took Tabriz and all Azerbaijan. In 1503, he defeated the last Akoyanlis at Hamadan, and extended his rule into central and southern Iran. In 1504, he conquered the Caspian provinces of Mazandaran and Gurgan. Between 1505 and 1507, he annexed Diyarbakir to the north of Syria. In 1508, he conquered southwestern Iran and Baghdad. Shirvan followed in 1509, and Khorasan in 1510.33. Within 10 years, therefore, Ismail had established a polity which matched the Ottoman Empire in its resources, which, in its adoption of Shi'ism, professed a religion which was hostile to the Sunnism of the Ottoman sultans, and whose messianic leader claimed the allegiance of many thousands of the sultan's subjects. Bayezid's reaction to this new danger was extremely cautious. When Ismail summoned his adherents to Erzincan in eastern Anatolia before his entry into Tabriz, Bayezid sent an army to his eastern border but did not intervene. After Ismail had proclaimed himself Shah in 1501, Bayezid ordered the arrest of Safavid sympathizers in his realms and their deportation to the Peloponnesos. Also, insofar as such a thing was possible, he closed his eastern border. However, since he did not also stop the caravan trade, Safavid missionaries were able to enter his realms by this route. Bayezid was anxious, however, not to provoke war. He was ready, in 1505, to receive an embassy from Ismail which laid claim to Trabzon and to listen to protests against the raids which the current governor of Trabzon, Bayezid's son Selim, had made into Safavid territory. In 1507, too, Bayezid allowed Shah Ismail to cross his territory in a campaign against Dulgadir, again simply sending an army to the border as a precaution. Bayezid's timidity in the face of the danger from the Safavids was a product in part of his age and infirmity. These two were the causes of another crisis in his later years, the struggle for the succession between his sons, Korkut, Ahmed, and Selim. It was during the course of this conflict, in April 1511, that a terrifying rebellion broke out in Tekke, in southwestern Anatolia, the area under the governorship of Prince Korkut. Its leader was a certain Shah Kulu, slave of the Shah, whose father had been in the service of Shah Ismail's grandfather, Sheikh Haider. On the death of his father, Shah Kulu had sent agents to proselytize the Safavid cause in the eastern part of Rumelia, while his local adherents in Tekke claimed, according to a report to Prince Korkut, "He is God, he is a prophet, the day of judgment will be before him. Whoever does not obey him is without faith." 34 It was not, however, only true believers who joined the rebellion. According to reports, many of his followers were cavalrymen, who claimed that tricksters had defrauded them of their fiefs, leaving them destitute. In the face of the rebellion, Prince Korkut retreated to Manisa, while the rebels defeated a force which he had sent against them and occupied Antalya. Shah Kulu's next victory as he advanced northwards was against the Governor-General of Anatolia, Karagöz Pasha. As he approached Kütahya, Karagöz Pasha attacked again but, in a counterattack, Shah Kulu defeated and killed him, impaling and, according to Prince Korkut's report to Bayezid, roasting his corpse. From Kütahya he advanced to Bursa. It was at an urgent request from Bursa that finally, in June, the Grand Vizier Hadim Ali Pasha and Prince Ahmed led a force against the rebels, forcing Shah Kulu to retreat to Karman, and then to Shivas. Hadim Ali, in the meantime, left Prince Ahmed and went in pursuit with a small detachment of Janissaries. The encounter near Shivas was Shah Kulu's last victory. He defeated and killed Hadim Ali, but seems himself to have lost his life, leaving the now leaderless rebels to flee across the border into Iran. The Shah Kulu rebellion had discredited both Bayezid's rule and the claims to succession of Korkut, who had abandoned Tekke to the rebels, and Ahmed, whose pursuit of the rebels had been ineffective. It was clearly with this knowledge that Selim rose in rebellion. In April 1512, he arrived in the capital, and 12 days later Bayezid abdicated in his favor. The old sultan died in the following June. His reign, despite the civil strife at its beginning and end and the defeats in the Mamluk War, marked an important stage in the evolution of the empire. Ottoman failure against the Mamluks had led the Sultan to improve the weaponry of the Janissaries and to tighten his control over the cavalrymen in the provinces. His reconstruction of the navy and encouragement of corsair captains had produced a fleet that was the equal of Venice's and had extended Ottoman naval power into the Mediterranean. His conquests, in comparison with his father's, were limited, but nonetheless significant, extending Ottoman control over the littoral of the Black Sea and the Peloponnesos and pacifying Albania. More important, however, were his institutional innovations. It was Bayezid who initiated the systematic codification of Ottoman customary law which, in essence, regulated the relationship between fief holders and the peasants on their land, and the military obligations of fief holders. It was, thus in Bayezid's reign, that what have come to be regarded as classical Ottoman institutions came to receive their classical formulation.